Good morning, Columbus. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's daily dose of digital Torah inspiration here at Sinai Studios, Judaism Today. This week we're getting ready for Pesach, and the most prominent feature of Pesach is the matzah. And for me, eating matzah is a tough mitzvah. You have to eat a lot of it at the Seder. It's not, it's hard, it's crunchy, but all Jews do it. And the simple reason why we do it is because we know the famous biblical verse that when the Jews were leaving Egypt, they went so quickly it didn't have time to fully rise before it baked in the hot desert sun. However, I want to share with you a deeper mystical idea that the Maharal of Prague shares about the concept of matzah. So bear with me. One of the interesting ways the Torah frames the mitzvah of making sure the matzah does not become chametz, does not leaven, it says, ushmartem es hamatzos, that you should guard the matzos, make sure they don't come in contact with any water, make sure leaven. This is where the concept of shmur matzah comes from. And what is very interesting is that Chazal, our tradition, has a drasha, has an explanation based on this pasuk, which also says don't read it as matzos, but rather read it as mitzvos. Don't allow not only the matzah to leaven, but don't allow the mitzvos that you do to leaven. In other words, do mitzvos when you have a mitzvah that is in front of you. Do it with alacrity, zest, and zeal. And the question is, what's the connection between these two things, other than the cute homily of it's sort of poetic, right? Don't let this rise, don't let that rise, don't let this wait 18 minutes, don't let that wait, do it right away. But what's the real concept? Is there a deeper meaning? Says the Maharal of Prague in Gur Aryeh. Most people think we live in a three-dimensional world. But the truth is we live in a fourth dimension. And the fourth dimension is time. And of all the different dimensions that we have, time is the most spiritual, if you will. It's the least physical. You can't touch it, you can't feel it, you can't smell it, but we all experience time, right? Time we age, right? It's hard to measure. Einstein's theory of relativity reminded us that it's a dimension, it's something that's malleable. But at the end of the day, time is a dimension which we all live within that framework, within that construct. And it's the most spiritual of all of the dimensions of life. Says the Maharal, what God was telling the Jewish people is you're about to become a holy people. You're about to become the people of the Torah, experience the greatest spiritual revelation in Jewish history. In fact, a relationship with God himself, says God. So how do we ensure your spiritual quality? Says the Torah, at your very outset, you have to be striving to transcend even the most spiritual aspect of this world. Even time, which is the least concrete of all the dimensions, try and transcend time. And it's a deep idea, but what it reminds us is that we should be trying to live our lives beyond this world. We should be living not only for a higher purpose, but with an eye towards spirituality, with an eye towards something sublime, right? We all know that there's this idea of mysticism and spirituality and Kabbalah, right? That might be beyond us. But to remember, to be cognizant of the fact that the more entrenched we are in this world, the harder it is to be focused on those spiritual elements, is what the mitzvah of matzah comes. And this is why so many of the mitzvahs of the Seder night have to do with b'chipazon, have to do with haste, because at the outset of the forming of the Jewish people, in the Chag HaGeulah, the holiday of redemption, when we were leaving Egypt and becoming our own identity, God says, remember, you are bigger and more transcendent and more spiritual than anything in this world, even time itself. I know that was a deep one. Think it over, consider it, think about it while you're chewing your matzah. Have a great week. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Judaism Today. If you did, please make sure to follow us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, or check into our podcast wherever podcasts are listened to. And we look forward to hearing from you more.